No matter. How you doing? Good to see Christmas carol? Hey Brian, what are you going to drive?
That one says time clock. The Astro time clock. Not Astro, atomic. Atomic clock.
Atomic clock.
In that hand, so he gets confused.
Good evening. The Hoover Board of Education meeting is now called to order. If you do choose to do so, please join me in our invocation tonight. Father, thank you so much for today. Thank you for the recent rains that you've sent our way. Father, it's awesome to see the power you have in changing the weather. Father, we ask that you bless this school system. We ask that you bless our administrators and teachers and staff. Father, I ask that you be with us tonight. Help us to have good discernment and be able to have a good, enjoyable, productive meeting. Father, thank you for all your blessings. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Salute. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Goodwin, will you please do a roll call to establish quorum, please?
Stephen Presley.
Here.
Earl Cooper.
Here.
Craig Kelly.
Here.
Jill Gaines Beach.
Here.
Deanna Bauman.
Here.
Thank you. Quorum is established. Board members, you have before you the agenda for tonight's board meeting. Do I have a motion to adopt this agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved. I'd like to take this time to recognize Mr. Derek Murphy for the Hoover City Council and also our newly appointed liaison to the City Council for the school system. Mr. Murphy, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Now have our time of recognition. Mr. Jason Gaskins, just in time.
Thank you, Mr. Presley and board members and Dr. Murphy. This is our monthly time to recognize those in our school system and connected to our school system who have done some spectacular things. So to kick us off, we're going to call up Regina Roberson with the Green Valley Elementary School CNP program. That's the Child Nutrition Program. Let me make sure you can see a photo up here. I'll try to remember to cycle through these. Coincidentally, I took that photo on the first day of this school year, not knowing it would come in handy for this month. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Regina. She's been at Green Valley since 2006. A lady in this building whom she succeeded, and she's done some spectacular things for Green Valley. Namely, why we have her here tonight is she has kept their health rating from the Jefferson County Department of Health at a perfect 100 for 3.5 years. I hope we didn't jinx you with that, so we'll knock on the way here. Also, earlier this fall, we made mention that Regina and her staff have had Silver Star level efforts at the national level from the Alliance for a Healthier Generation and the Let's Move Active Schools campaign. And then back to the perfect 100s, we should note that in this fall's health inspections, Rocky Ridge, South Shades Crest, Shades Mountain, Gwen, Greystone, Berry, and Deer Valley also received 100s for this fall. So let's congratulate all of them. And we'll ask all of our honorees to stay afterward for a photo in the lobby. And next, if Miss Carrie Busby would come to the front and just make her presence known. Several of us were at Hoover High School a few weeks ago when she was surprised, I guess to say the least, by the executive director of class, Mr. Earl Franks. Class is the Council for Leaders in Alabama Schools. When they announced her in a school-wide assembly, she was the Alabama Assistant Principal of the Year. So congratulations to Carrie.
Carrie, does that come with no more bus duty?
I think it does come with no more bus duty. Thank you for pointing that out.
All right, and just in time is Valerie Morgan, who I see coming in the back. So I heard you were caught up in traffic, so we'll just kind of keep you in the sequence if you would come forward. She is the band director of bands at Simmons Middle School and has been for some time. She's racked up a number of accolades over the years, the latest of which is, her band being, the honor band being selected to be among the 2017 Music for All Southeastern Regional Concert Festival. And that will be in Atlanta in March, and it was a selection process. And if I understand correctly, one of only 8 middle schools in the Southeast, correct? Congratulations, Ms. Morgan. A couple more recognitions. Dr. Terry Lamar from Bluff Park Elementary School. If he would, we don't necessarily have to have him come forward, but if you want, please stand. Please, okay.
Come on up.
Dr. Murphy is saying come up.
This is pretty big news.
We wanted to make mention of you and talk about the distinction that you earned recently, becoming a doctor. So congratulations. This was at Samford University. He successfully defended his dissertation, which was a topic that was on, quote, is it appropriate to implement standards-based grading in a middle school setting, end quote. And this was a client-based dissertation for Homewood City Schools. Congratulations, Dr. Lamar. And Miss Heather Jones-Skaggs is in the audience. Okay? And I think she's got a little bit of an ailment, so we'll give her some time to come forward here. Heather is a graduate of Hoover High School back in the 90s, and she also worked in the local media market, as did I, at Fox 6 back in the day. She's authored a number of books on Hoover and the history of Hoover, the latest of which is on the community of River Chase. And so we're going to present that to Dr. Alice Turney tonight. And Heather, you want to say a word or two about this book?
Thank you all for having me here tonight. With each of my books, I always give one to each of the elementary schools. History was one of my favorite subjects in school, is also geography. So I believe that history is important for our children to continue learning and also to learn about their own communities and their own schools. So I have a copy for you to take back, and y'all can keep it in your library.
Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure working with
All right, and that concludes our recognitions for this evening.
Thank you, Ms.
I do think we need to add one, if I may, and certainly give this more attention at a subsequent board meeting, but Hoover High School, 7A state champs football. So we will make a bigger deal out of that at another occasion, but let's just acknowledge that also. Congratulations, Mr. Hewlin, to your school.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy and Mr. Gaston. We now have a time for public participation. Do we have any public who'd like to come up and speak tonight? Okay, if you will, come up to state your name. If you represent an organization, please give us the name of that organization. Please be reminded that the good name and character of people cannot be addressed during your public comments. And just so we can make sure everybody understands where we are, we now have a 3-minute countdown clock that will allow you to limit your comments to 3 minutes or less.
Thank you. I'm Steve Grondin. I'm a Hoover resident, Trace Crossings parent. I am here because of what I read in the after last meeting in the newspaper. I want to make sure it wasn't covered necessarily in detail, but with respect to the investment in U.S. Treasury bonds, it is possible to lose money in U.S. Treasury bonds if you have to sell them before they mature. Granted, there's no default risk, but as long as and one of the comments was, if we need funds, we can always liquidate them quickly, just so the board understands that it's possible to lose money in the case you liquidate them before they are matured. So please, if you need further clarification, do talk more closely with your financial advisors. That kind of leads me to a second point that I've been thinking about before, is we saw a very detailed budget presentation before. I'd like to commend the schools on their transparency for that. One of the things that many businesses, including the one I work for, do is we use financial projections to look at where we plan to be in the next couple of years. I don't think we've seen anything quite as detailed as the budget, and even anything quite as, it wouldn't have to be quite as detailed, but something that gives us a better idea of what our future requirements are. One of our biggest costs is our personnel costs. We know that teacher salaries, administrator salaries, or at least my impression is teacher salaries change with the duration of employment, years of service, as well as educational attainment. We need to factor those kind of things into budget projections so that we know whether or not we can safely invest $50 million in a term of maybe 2 years, like we were talking about, to get the yields that they were talking about. So I would encourage our finance department to produce similar kind of projections to show what our near-term and intermediate-term needs are, so that we can properly decide whether investing in something that has a fixed term is what we want to do. Thank you very much.
Can you tell me your last name one more time?
Grondin. It's spelled Grondin.
Thank you, Mr. Grondin.
Thank you.
My name is Jody Patterson, and tonight I've just got some information I want to pass out, and have all the board members read it, please. As well, I've got a copy for Dr. Murphy. And I want to say one thing, I can still taste those peanut butter cookies from Green Valley Elementary in the 1960s. So that lunchroom has been good for a long time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Patterson.
Yes, sir.
Do we have any other public participation tonight? Yes, sir.
Arnold Singer, I also was going to bring up that same point about the bond issue. There are a couple of other, not the bond issue, but the purchase of the treasury bills. It was indicated there was no commission. Well, when there's no commission, there's a difference between, it's called the spread, between what they're purchased for and what they're sold to us for. We have no idea at this point what that spread is. Now, as I researched further, I found out that we can bid for bonds directly from the Treasury, these Treasury bills. And instead of paying spreads, we might be best off having a consultant or a newsletter that would be providing the information as to where the market is, and that could represent additional revenue income for the Board of Education. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singer. Any others? Thank you all for your comments. Move on to our action items. Board members, you have before you the minutes of our regular board meeting of November 14, 2016. Dr. Murphy?
Board members, I would request your approval of the November 14 board minutes.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Do we have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendations of the approval of these minutes?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions from the board? Having no questions, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Next item on our agenda will be personnel actions. Dr. Murphy?
Board members, I request your approval of the personnel report. As you will see, it includes the employment of 13 individuals, the transfer of 1 individual, the change of status of 4, and leave of request to include 15. We have resignations for 12, and the retirement of 3 individuals and the termination of 1. I would request your approval of the personnel report.
Do I have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation of the approval of the personnel actions?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions from the board?
It looks to me like there's a small net decrease. Is there anything left unfilled at this point?
We still have, people that resign. We've got some, positions that open up. But as far as a long-term vacancy, it's basically if someone has resigned, it's just filling that position, but nothing long-term.
Any other questions from the board? I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Personnel report is approved. Next item on our agenda will be the business actions. Dr. Murphy?
I request your approval of the monthly financial statement for October 2016. What you have in front of you is the financial statement for the month ending October 31. We have received 5.37% of our budget revenue based on October being our first month in the fiscal year. The variance as compared to last year is favorable to the amount of $77,677. That's really the result of 2 things. One is the foundation funding for 2017 has increased, and we also have an increase of $26,242 additional dollars in ad valorem and sales tax receipts from this time last year. And also general fund expenditures for the month ending October 31 is $9.6 million. I do request your approval of this financial statement.
I have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation of the approval of the business actions.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions from the board?
Team, this is not a gotcha. This is the first month we had the impact of the salary increases mandated by the state. What's our rough ballpark figure? For the salary increase, yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what the actual increase was,
It's a ballpark. It
but
was,
the payroll was around 7 million, a little over 7 million.
right, 7.3.
We'll check on that.
Yeah, it went up. That's the point.
Well, it was offset some by positions that were not filled, and it was a bit of a wash, was it not, Ms. Hancock?
Yes.
Positions that we didn't fill, and then the pay increase, not a big differential.
Yeah, that's just good work on you and the staff's part.
Good work.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Having no questions, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Business actions are approved. Next item on our agenda will be the resolution for the special renewal. Let me say that one more time. For the special renewal of school tax elections. Dr. Murphy.
If I may, I perhaps didn't present very well. I asked your approval of the financial statement for October 26. I'd like to also ask your approval for the November payroll, which is $7,394,794.73 to be exact. And I would also bring to your attention the cash disbursement, which you do not have to approve for October, which was $4,899,000. And under School Fiscal Accountability Act, I'd like for you to take note of a notification from Ms. Tina Hancock for your attention. I would ask your approval, if we could, of that payroll and the School Fiscal Accountability Act.
Okay, we have a recommendation from our superintendent to approve the payroll and the School Fiscal Accountability Act. Do I have a motion to approve this recommendation?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
The motion and a second. Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The monthly payroll and the School Fiscal Accountability Act recommendations have been approved. We will now move on to the renewal of the school tax, resolution for the special renewal for school tax.
Thank you, board members. You may recall in July, we asked that you pass 3 resolutions. We asked that you pass those resolutions at that time with the expectation that the renewal for the Jefferson County sales tax would be on the November ballot. It was not, and so it will now be on the March 7th ballot, a special ballot. And so what we need to do is to revisit those resolutions. There are 3 resolutions, and Mr. Hayward Hosh is here with us. If you would share with us again.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Dr. Murphy. Good evening, everyone. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Murphy. I'm Hayward Hush from Maynard, Cooper & Gale. It's our pleasure to be special counsel to the board on this matter. And Dr. Murphy has actually given a very good summary. We were here in July, and the very same proceedings were before you in preparation for a potential November 8 election on renewing 3 school taxes that exist now. Logistics prevented the measures from being on the ballot then. So a new date has been chosen of March 7th. So really what you have before you are this exact same proceedings with just the March 7, 2017 election date. 3 taxes to be renewed. There's a 2.1 mil countywide tax, a 5.4 mil countywide tax, and each of which you get a proportionate share, and a 13.9 mil district tax of which you get all of it. These are renewals and continuations of existing taxes. At the rate will not change, the purpose will not change. There's no increase, it's just an extension of time. They'll be expiring in 2021.
What was the logistical thing that caused it not to be on the November ballot when millions of people would vote versus February when you might have 200?
Well, it had to do with a number of propositions and also the different types of elections that I think there was some concerns about precinct lines being different, for school taxes as opposed to some of the other races, and you wouldn't want people going to have to vote twice, go here to vote for that. And So there were a variety of things that just kind of prevented it, and it was decided. And typically, school tax elections are held in the springtime, the early spring, and so it was determined to, because of some concerns with November 8 and also the history and tradition of having them in the early spring, to just continue it for that reason.
It'll be important to get the vote out.
Yes, sir, it will. It will.
Even though it's-
Because these, as I said, these are, as Mr. Presley has made very clear, renewals and continuations. This just keeps what you have, because it will expire pretty soon.
Is there any chance for any other, say, I've been hearing, of course, about gambling machines or anything like that being added to to this ballot? Will this ballot only be addressing the school taxes?
Yes, ma'am. Now, I think there is I'm not involved with it, but I believe there is a House representative seat that would, I don't know that it would affect Hoover. Mr. Robinson resigned, I believe, maybe District 58, something like that. Anyway, there is another election, and so there's motivation for the county to have them both at once. But I don't think that would affect you all. So it would just be these three propositions.
And I just want to make sure there's something else added on to this.
No, ma'am, with the exception of that one race in the precincts.
Added on to.
Yes, ma'am. No, we do not. You're quite right, we do not. And that's one reason for having it, separate. That's been traditionally the case. So.
Any other questions for Mr. Hosh? Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it'd be my pleasure, sir.
So, board members, I'd like to recommend that you approve the three resolutions that are before you.
We have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation for the approval of resolution for special renewal for the schools tax. These will be resolution number 2016-8, resolution number 2016-9, and resolution number 2016-10. Do I have a motion to approve these resolutions?
So moved.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
So a motion and a second. Any other questions from the board? Questions from the public? No questions. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The resolution for special renewal tax, number 2016-8, resolution number 2016-9, and resolution 2016-10 have been approved.
Thank you very much.
And let's please note, pull out your calendars and add March 7th. We need you to go out and vote, and appreciate the board approving those resolutions this evening.
Thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Next item on our agenda will be the Jason Flat policy. Dr. Murphy?
Board members, we shared with you at our last board meeting information about the Jason Flat Act. This is also known as the Youth Suicide Awareness and Prevention Bill. This was passed during the regular legislative session in March. Basically, this act was passed to encourage school personnel to recognize and act on any signs of suicide risk in order to prevent and also to intervene, and any postvention based on students who are at risk. It also includes support for students or a prevention of harassment and violence for our students. And so respectfully ask at this point if you will approve the Jason Flat Act, which would become a part of our board's policy.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Do I have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation of the approval of the Jason Flat policy?
So moved.
A motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any questions from the board? Questions from the public? Having no questions, and we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The Jason Flat policy is approved. Dr. Murphy will now give new business superintendent's report and information reports.
I would like to just start with a quick discussion about our calendars, and board members, if I could just pass down to you some information about our calendars. As you and our public perhaps knows, we had a couple of options, actually 3 drafts on the table an option A, B, and C. You see that the summary of this on this document. Draft B received the highest percentage of votes. You have copies of option or draft A, B, and C in your notebooks. We're not asking for your approval this evening. We want you to have an opportunity to review those calendars. The calendar committee actually presented 2 drafts, A and B, and then we asked our HPTC organization to take a look, and they actually offered up the 3rd draft, which was the option C. We then posted this out on SurveyMonkey and received the results back that you have in front of you, which indicates that the preponderance of our public prefers that we go with draft B. Again, not a request this evening of your approval, but an opportunity for you to take a look at the calendars, make sure we answer any questions that you might have, and we'll ask in January if you will approve calendar B would be my recommendation. Any questions at this point?
Okay. Never mind.
Okay. Also, we have a number of occasions now where we have what's being referred to in the literature as crowdfunding. Crowdfunding includes the GoFundMe accounts, Donors Choose, Adopt a Classroom, Class Wish, are some examples of crowdfunding where a teacher might know of a need and reaches out for a larger population of individuals to make a donation or a commitment for a project. We do have a board policy. Policy 3.16 talks about school fundraising activities, with the very first statement being that all fundraising has to be approved by principals. And also that there can be no conflict with instructional programs. It has to be a bona fide school project or activity, and must be in compliance with all of our expectations, of course, in terms of our local school finance manual. So what I've shared with you are our best thoughts, looking and talking with our finance folks, and also talking to our policy committee, and just ask them to help us develop some procedures. Now, obviously, I understand we have policies which we ask you to approve, and procedures which we just simply are sharing with you. And at this point, I just want to share these procedures with you so that you know that anytime someone goes posting out for a GoFundMe project, that has been vetted with the principal, and that has only gone out with the approval of the principal. And so there are some caveats here that we've simply put in place to just protect the employee, to protect the school district, and to protect the integrity of the process of fundraising. So if you'll take a look at that, again, not asking for your approval, you certainly may want to make some suggestions for us. And so this is not etched in stone. I just want you to know it's under our study and our review. I would also like to just briefly share with you that the board has a policy 3.112 that talks about fees, payments, and rentals. And as we've already shared with you, we're doing lots of study as it relates to rental cost. We also are taking a look at any fees that might be associated with reproducing any materials. Significant investments of time sometimes occur, lots of copying occurs. So we're just taking a look at this right now. Again, nothing that we're asking your approval for, but just to make you aware that we're trying to define some procedures specific to some of the policies that we have in place. And that's what you will also find behind this particular tab. We've had a good number of conversations in the last couple of board meetings about Christmas is here and the ethics law and gift giving. And as you may be aware, on October the 17th, on December the 7th, I got that all wrong, on December the 7th, the Ethics Commission took a review of gift giving again. As you may remember that particular history, I believe it was in 2010 that the ethics law passed the policy specific to gifts. There was a follow-up then, I think a couple of years later, where a definition was given for de minimis value, which was that de minimis value was no gift above the cost of $25, and so that's simply been revisited. And based on that, the Ethics Commission now is lifting that $25 limitation. However, in doing that, they're also saying it probably still is best policy and best practice if you don't give gifts over $25. So while it's not a de minimis value defined at $25, the suggestion is to still continue to keep gifts at $25. We obviously understand that in no way would we ever solicit gifts. We also understand in the receiving of any gift, there is no reciprocity due. In other words, students and parents aren't giving us gifts in exchange for, you know, an attaboy on bad conduct and or grades that are not deserved. So what I will ask you to do at our January board meeting, however, is to look at 5.7 in our board policy. It is employee gifts. And I think that to be now in compliance with this ruling from the Ethics Commission, we would drop the second paragraph of 5.7. We would keep the paragraph that says employees may accept gifts from students or other members of the public if the gifts are in accordance with the Alabama ethics law or other pertinent state laws, and leave it there. That second paragraph talks about de minimis value, and that's no longer of value and is no longer the definition, and I'll ask you to consider dropping that second paragraph. So again, gift giving is allowed for teacher gifts, and certainly we want to respect the fact that we don't solicit those and that we don't turn favors for gifts. I also want to share with you that we will have our big community meeting tomorrow night. I hope it's big. I know there are lots of conflicts. This is a difficult time of the year, lots of seasonal things happening. We will be meeting at the Metropolitan Church of God tomorrow evening. I believe that meeting's at 6 o'clock. And we've shared with you, just so you have a preview of what this looks like, you have a preview of a draft of the PowerPoint presentation that will be presented tomorrow night. There are 7 subcommittees. We've given each of those subcommittees 7 minutes to talk about the work of their committee because we don't want to go on and on and on. We don't want to lose folks. We anticipate the meeting will be a bit over an hour, but it should be a good opportunity for us to bring our public back into conversations about strategic planning for our school district. After this presentation, we'll go on hold. We'll wait to submit some paperwork to the court. We shared this with you last board meeting. We anticipate feedback from Judge Heikela, which may impact our strategic plan, and at that time we'll make any tweaks or modifications, and then hopefully have a strategic plan before you sometime in the spring to ask for your approval. Just some guidance for us as we approach the next 3 to 5 years of the life of our school district. So you do have a preview of that presentation.
Dr. Murphy, feel free to take our countdown clock to use for those committees. We can change that to 7 minutes.
I thought you were about to call time on me.
You know, no matter how many people show up from the public, if you have all your committee members show up, you'll have a good crowd.
Yeah.
You got a lot of people involved.
Yeah, we had a lot of people involved and really wanted more. So if your schedule allows, please join us tomorrow night at the church just near our campus here. Want to brag a minute? Hoover City Schools has been acknowledged by the niche organization. We have been acknowledged as one of the best school districts in the nation based on their 2017 Best Schools in America rankings. They make that ranking, considerations for that include our ACT scores, our student-teacher ratios, the quality of the colleges that our students are getting into, reviews from our students and our parents. Those are just some of the things that they take a look at. They actually ranked Hoover City Schools. They did get this part wrong. They ranked us as the 4th best school district in the state. We know clearly we're the 1st, but I am pleased that we were ranked in the top of our state and certainly have received national recognition through the niche organization. So wanted to share that bit of good news with you also. We had some students who talked to us at our last public hearing about our New Beginnings program. After every meeting of this board, we follow that up the next morning with a principals meeting. And we follow that up the next day with a department meeting just so we make sure we've heard and that we know what needs to be on our radar screen. And after hearing our students, we went to the table, and we have some of our principals who volunteered to create a think tank to look at our New Beginnings program. They've already had their first meeting. They have some suggestions and ideas that they're bringing forth to us, and we'll be looking at that program, New Beginnings. We'll be looking at, are there better ways to do that work and better ways to support our students? And I think they have some terrific ideas for how we go forward. Probably most of that would not be implemented until we get to our next academic year. But if there are some ways, and there actually are some things already being tweaked as it relates to our New Beginnings programs, we respect our students who bring their concerns to us. We always have a listening ear, and we always want to be respectful to see if there's a better way that we can do the business of our children. So I'm pleased a number of those people are actually here. I see Anna's here. Brian Kane, I believe, is actually heading that up. Don Hewlin, who am I missing? There may be others. Mr. Giangrosso, thank you. Dr. Smith, Deborah Smith. So I was so excited that they raised their hand and said, hey, let's create a think tank and let's talk about what we're doing. And are these best practices? Is there a better way to do it? So hats off to all those who've already come to the table to create that think tank for us. We're very pleased with that. I want to acknowledge our personnel department. For your leisure reading opportunity, I have behind us a notebook filled with job descriptions. And one of the things that we know that we need to do is that we need to review those job descriptions. We need to make sure there's some consistency in how those job descriptions are written. We don't write job descriptions for people. We write job descriptions for a task. And so we've been very careful through this process to make sure those job descriptions are written in such a way that the task of that job is being done. And then when we post jobs, then the applicant has to meet our expectations. We don't write job descriptions the other way around. With all that being said, I do want to acknowledge Christy Williams and Mary Ville and others I'm sure who've probably helped. I believe Melissa McKee from our Bishop Calvin has also supported us. But these job descriptions are something we need to have right. It's foundational to us establishing expectations for our employees. So I'm very pleased with where we are. It may not be in its final form. It's, again, I like to say not etched in stone, but we've come a long way, baby, in terms of taking a look at those job descriptions. So do you want to add anything to that, personnel?
I've been sitting here going over, I know that we probably missed a couple in there. We were stuffing these books at the last minute, and I wanted to be able to look through them before I handed them to you. But what I'd like to do, Melissa is still reviewing a few, and we'll just go back through them again. If you see things, you know, send it to me, and hopefully we'll have final revisions, suggestions made before January, and we'll just put in anything in red if that works.
And again, we're hoping February or thereafter to just ask for your approval of these job descriptions. But we have some time, but again, I'm pleased for the progress that we have on our job descriptions. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. I'd like to take just a minute to brag on the 5 board members that are up here. As some of you may or you may not know, we are required by state law to have a certain number of hours each year of continuing training. And all 5 board members took time off on Friday of this past week to attend a 2-day conference, Friday and Saturday, to complete that training requirement as part of being on the school board. Also, as part of school board, we are members of the Alabama Association of School Boards, and we have the opportunity to have delegates that sit on that school board to help write policy and change any of the policies that they may have. Mr. Craig Kelly and Ms. Deanna Baumann are our 2 delegates that sit on that delegate committee. And I know I'm going to get some of this wrong, so if I do, please correct me. But on Thursday, they were at a resolution committee meeting, and it was recommended by our 2 delegates that the wording for the resolution concerning corporal punishment be changed. It states now that it discouraged corporal punishment, but our delegates made a motion to have that change to prohibits corporal punishment. And I'm proud to say that that did pass out of the committee. It went to a vote for the full delegate assembly of all school boards, and it did not pass. But I wanted to commend Mr. Kelly and Ms. Baumann for stepping out on that limb. It was from what I understand, a very heated and very exciting time when that came up for a vote. But I appreciate you guys for stepping out on that, and thank you for taking vacation days to get your required credit hours. Any other comments or questions from our board?
We still in new business?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Presley, do you mind if I speak?
Not at all.
I would like to say thank you. Janet Turner, please stand up. From the Hoover Schools Foundation. We hosted at this school board's convention 500 to 600, depending on if you count guests or not, that attended and stayed, most of them at the Winfrey. Janet took the lead and got us some Hoover swag bags, if anything else, pens, magazine, Chamber of Commerce information. She physically stuffed them, maybe some help with some children and students, not forced labor, but community service. Anyway, it was very kind of you to do that, Janet. She did it without any help and met me at the Galleria. And so everybody that came into there, and you're talking superintendents, board members from the entire state were visiting our city, and they got some information on Hoover. So thank you again very much, Janet. One thing, can I, Mr. Presley, continue to speak? One thing kind of disturbing, Mr. Sentence was there at the, and spoke to the General Assembly, actually the entire convention, Friday night, sorry. And a lot went on last week, as you know, in State Board of Education. One thing that disturbed us was to hear the word, I used the word equity-based funding. To me, that means they're looking at possibly some areas of the state getting either more funding or taking some of our funding away to help some of the more disadvantaged areas of the state. That's very, very disturbing if they start discounting what we pay extra taxes for. So we are watching that. We will watch that in the legislature and try to keep you apprised of what's going on there. The position with AESB is, and it's not their project now, this came from the state superintendent's words, is that ASB says they think they would increase the funding for the other districts. My fear is they take some of ours away, so we're going to watch it, so just to let you know. That's all I have, thank you.
The interesting thing about that was it was couched in the context of when he was working in Massachusetts to do a lot of changes. And I think the way Mr. Sentence verbalized it was they were very progressive in identifying districts with particular needs and other districts who had a lot of sources or a lot of revenue, a lot of money, and finding a way to take from the rich to give to the poor, if you will. And I thought the word progressive was kind of an interesting terminology coming from somebody from Massachusetts. And I think Craig interpreted it in his common vernacular, that is taking from the wealthy and giving to the poor districts. And you know, and we all know, we talked about it at length about the, you take some of the rural districts that have got tremendous timberlands that are valued at next to nothing. And often owned by out-of-state people and that kind of thing. A lot of this problem could be resolved if the use tax was corrected, perhaps.
All property in the state, and we have attorneys sitting there who can correct me, but basically your property is classified current use, meaning, for example, I think the cap on current use is $1,500. This all can be valued, whether it's got $10,000 in standing timber, whether it's a soybean field, or what it is, it's kept. If current use ceiling could be raised slightly, it would dramatically increase the funding into the state. Now that would take a constitutional amendment. It'll never happen because of Alpha and several other lobbyist organizations. But Georgia, for example, I own a very small amount of property and I pay like $2.25 an acre with trees that big around on the few acres I have. Go to Georgia, that's probably $8 an acre. Mine's $2 and something. So I didn't want to get into this till my colleague mentioned it because I don't think it will ever happen in this state. So we're paying attention to if possibly they continue to discuss taking money from our district and our sister districts in favor of other districts. Our state funding is a little over $9,000. Your district funds more than that locally. So we're very fortunate that you pay taxes, that you're gonna renew our taxes that are coming up on March 7th, and we wanna keep it that way. So, we were listening anyway.
Probably too close.
Last week at the pep rally for the state championship game, Coach Niblett said there are two kind of people in this world. There are comparators and there are competitors. I can promise you that this board will continue to compete no matter what we have to do, whether it's standing up and fighting, but we will continue to compete for our students. Because we like for everybody else to compare themselves to us, but we're going to continue to compete to get better and better and better.
He also said that they thought, the media, whoever thought that Mr. Hill and his team would get buried, but they didn't factor in the consideration that they were seed. So, kind of throwing some seed out here.
Our next regular board meeting will be on January the 9th, 2017. 2017 at 5:30. The board now needs to convene into executive session. Dr. Murphy?
Board members, I would request that we go into an executive session to address a matter that is confidential under Alabama law, and that is a disciplinary matter involving a student. And so I would request that you accept a motion in a second and that we adjourn to an executive session.
We have a recommendation from our superintendent to go into executive session. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Goodwin, will you please do a roll call vote?
Mr. Presley,
Yay?
Mr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mrs. Gaines Beach, Mrs. Bowman.
Yes.
Sorry.
At this time, it is 6:18. We will anticipate a 15-minute recess. Mr. Murphy?
Just one quick comment. I don't want to make everything about sports, but for attendance purposes, I think the January 9th is a championship game, so it may have a low attendance that night. So just, I could be wrong.
Who's playing?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
That is a good point.
Very good
Because
point.
We changed it last year because
That
of
is
that.
the Davis Cup, is that right?
So they could be
The
playing.
Auburn people up here would know.
Steve will be here.
We won't comment on that right now. Thank you, Mr. Ferguson. We may look at changing that date. The time is now 6:19. We anticipate a 15-minute recess, and then we will go into executive session. Anticipate that to be between 45 minutes and an hour. If there's no further business, we will be adjourned into executive session.
That's all. No problem.